Max Verstappen wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix in 2024.
Formula One is often described as a sport of speed, but speed alone rarely wins races. What truly defines success in a Formula One is position. Where you start, where you restart, and where you find clean air. Track position dictates strategy. Strategy dictates tire life, and tire life ultimately dictates lap time. Because of this, most Formula One races are effectively decided before the lights go out. Drivers who qualify near the front control the pace, manage their tires, and avoid traffic. Drivers who start deep in the field are forced into compromise. Overheating tires, limited visibility, and constant risk. That is why genuine comebacks are so rare in Formula One. Winning from the back requires perfect execution across every phase of the race, from the launch, to overtaking technique, to tire management, to strategic decisions under pressure. This video is not about strong recoveries or respectable finishes. It is about races that should not have been won, but were. David Coulthard, Australian Grand Prix, 2003. The 2003 Australian Grand Prix marked the opening race of the season, and David Coulthard arrived in Melbourne with a car that showed promise over long runs, but lacked consistency in qualifying. As a result, he found himself starting the race out of position, surrounded by traffic and exposed to early incidents. That vulnerability became reality almost immediately.
By the looks of things, the right front of Coulthard, one of the Renaults has lost ground as well, a slightly chaotic start.
The opening phase of the race was chaotic, with multiple cars making contact and the field compressing heavily. Coulthard lost time navigating incidents and was shuffled toward the back half of the grid, far from where a race winner would normally be. Under stable conditions, that would have ended any realistic chance of victory. But conditions did not remain stable. Midway through the race, rain began to fall. Not enough to stop the race, but enough to turn every braking zone into a gamble. Teams were suddenly forced to choose between staying on slicks or switching to intermediates, with no clear indication of how long the rain would last. Coulthard's team reacted decisively. He was brought in at exactly the right moment, gaining grip while others struggled. As rivals slid wide and fought for traction,
David Coulthard into the pits. Ted.
Yes, James, wets off, dries on.
Coulthard was able to carry speed through corner exits and brake with confidence. As pit stops cycled through the field, the order reshuffled dramatically. When the chaos settled, Coulthard found himself in the lead. From that point onward, his task was no longer to attack, but to control the race, managing tire wear, staying off wet curbs, and avoiding mistakes. From a compromised grid position and early race disorder, David Coulthard crossed the finish line first. A comeback built on timing, discipline, and exploiting changing conditions.
Because David Coulthard from Twynham in Scotland wins the Australian Grand Prix for the second time in his career.
Fernando Alonso Singapore Grand Prix, 2008. The 2008 Singapore Grand Prix was Formula One's first night race, run on a tight street circuit lined with concrete walls.
The Marina Bay Grand Prix circuit, it says uniquely Singapore up there. Well, it certainly is. Uniquely too, it's the first night race in Formula One.
Overtaking was expected to be extremely difficult, and track position was considered critical. Fernando Alonso's race appeared ruined early. An unusually early pit stop dropped him to the very back of the field, leaving him with no clear path forward on a circuit where passing was almost impossible. Then the race changed completely. A crash triggered a safety car at a moment that could not have been worse for most of the grid. The majority of the field had not yet pitted, meaning they would be forced to pit under safety car conditions, losing enormous amounts of track position. Alonso had already made his stop. As the race neutralized and then restarted, cars ahead of Alonso began diving into the pits one by one. Each stop dropped them behind him.
and now we wait to see what the order will be at the end. Alonso will be the one.
Without overtaking a single car on track, Alonso gained positions through timing and circumstance. When the pit cycle completed, Alonso was leading the race. From that moment onward, the challenge was simply to maintain position. Singapore's layout made attacking extremely difficult, and Alonso drove with precision, avoiding curbs, managing tire temperatures, and keeping his lap times consistent. After being last on the road early in the race, Fernando Alonso crossed the line first, a victory created by strategic alignment and preserved by flawless execution. Jenson Button Canadian Grand Prix, 2011. The 2011 Canadian Grand Prix was one of the most chaotic races in Formula One history. Heavy rain, repeated safety cars, and constant interruptions stretched the event over 4 hours. Jenson Button's race unraveled almost immediately.
And then on, it was really a fight. You know, I got to drive through for speeding behind the safety car. And then I had to fight my way through about 3 times.
He made contact with another car, received a drive-through penalty, and was forced into repeated pit stops. By mid-race, he had stopped 6 times and was classified 21st, last place. In normal circumstances, recovery would have been impossible. But Montreal was not normal. As the rain eased and a dry line began to form, Button's car became increasingly competitive. His tire choices allowed him to stay on track while others pitted, and each safety car restart compressed the field again. Button attacked immediately on every restart, capitalizing on cold tires and hesitation from rivals. He overtook consistently, sometimes gaining multiple positions in a single lap, using traction and late braking. By the final phase of the race, Button was one of the fastest cars on the circuit. Only Sebastian Vettel remained ahead. Under relentless pressure, Vettel made a mistake on the final lap, running wide and losing momentum.
I think Vettel's got wide.
Yeah,
he's got wide.
He turned in too late. He got the tyres. Button leads the Grand Prix.
Button seized the opportunity and took the lead. From last place to first, Jenson Button won one of the most extraordinary races Formula One has ever produced.
Surely one of the finest races of his life and the best Grand Prix of his spectacular career.
John Watson, Detroit Grand Prix, 1982. The Detroit street circuit in 1982 was brutal. Bumpy surfaces, narrow streets, and unforgiving walls punished even minor errors. Overtaking was extremely risky, and mechanical reliability was fragile. John Watson qualified 17th, far from the front and surrounded by traffic. At the time, Formula One cars were heavier, brakes overheated easily, and strategies were limited. Watson approached the race with restraint. He avoided unnecessary risks early, allowing others to make mistakes. As the race progressed, leading cars began to retire due to crashes, brake failures, and mechanical issues.
All right, let's try to pick up a battle here. Whoops, out of the race car. That's car number 2, Riccardo Patrese of Italy.
Watson stayed consistent and clean. When opportunities appeared, he took them decisively. As the field thinned, his pace became increasingly competitive, and his overtakes were controlled rather than aggressive. By the closing stages of the race, Watson had climbed into the lead. From 17th on the grid, he went on to win. A comeback achieved almost entirely on track, driven by endurance and discipline.
There is John Watson and Eddie Cheever with him. Eddie Cheever in the blue and white, John Watson in the red and white.
Max Verstappen, São Paulo Grand Prix, 2024. Max Verstappen began the 2024 São Paulo Grand Prix from 17th place. The reason was an engine penalty that forced Red Bull to replace power unit components.
Would have predicted Verstappen, Perez and Sainz out in Q2, but my word, that is what we have.
Interlagos is a short, aggressive circuit that allows overtaking only with commitment and precision. Race conditions were unstable, with damp patches and fluctuating grip levels. At the start, Verstappen launched cleanly and immediately attacked into Turn 1 and Turn 4. By braking later than rivals and using alternate racing lines, he gained multiple positions on the opening lap. By lap 2, he was already inside the top 10.
Max Verstappen up to P10.
Red Bull's setup prioritized traction and stability over straight-line speed, allowing Verstappen to overtake without excessive tire degradation. He passed cars both with and without DRS, often completing moves under braking or on corner exit. A safety car compressed the field, but on the restart, Verstappen attacked immediately while others struggled to bring tires up to temperature. Within a few laps, he was fighting for the lead. Once in clean air, his pace was unmatched. From 17th to 1st, Max Verstappen won the race. A comeback defined not by chaos alone, but by preparation, execution, and control.
You know what that is? Simply lovely, I tell you that.
These races were not won because of luck. They were won because drivers adapted faster than everyone else. They read conditions, managed tires, and understood risk. Formula One does not reward hope. It rewards execution when everything goes wrong. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with other Formula One fans. Write in the comments which overtaking impressed you the most and which overtakings are missing from this list. See you in the next race.